Strategically located at the heart of central Luzon in the Philippines, the province of Tarlac is landlocked by the four provinces of Pangasinan in the north, Nueva Ecija in the east, Zambales in the west, and Pampanga in the south. The capital city of Tarlac is 2.5 hours away from the city of Manila and 45 minutes away from Clark. Tarlac is an agricultural province composed of 305,000 hectares of land, of which 129,000 hectares is arable. Receiving the best sun radiance in the Philippines, Tarlac yields a bounty of resources that contribute to the country's food supply and exports. Local entrepreneurship is anchored on agricultural and natural products. Manufacturing and processing factories are present in industrial estates, business process outsourcing services in information and technology parks. Tarlac is a convergence point of roads strengthened with an impressive network of expressways and national highways and is close to international airports, free ports, and seaports. It hosts a diverse set of attractions from historical and natural sites to progressive developments, including the new Clark City, the 9,450-hectare premier metropolis of the country. The vast plains and mountains of Tarlac serve as a landscape for outdoor pursuits. With a population of 1.5 million, Tarlac is a multicultural province composed of 7 heritage cultures: the Kapampangans, Pangasinenses, Ilocanos, Tagalogs, Phil-Chinese, Muslims, and Aitas. Tarlac province highlights this diversity with the 6-day Kanlahi Festival, the only festival in the country that is celebrated throughout an entire province. There are 2 state universities, a provincial training hospital for 5 disciplines in medicine, and the recently launched University of the Philippines School of Health Sciences. Getting through the COVID-19 pandemic brought about creativity and innovation in providing services to the people and stabilizing the economy without sacrificing the health and safety of constituents and frontliners. A 24/7 emergency response team is fully operational, and police presence is strongly visible. Tarlac is a peaceful and environment-conscious province with sustainable and globally competitive agriculture, major logistics investments, and captivating tourist destinations with well-planned communities that are home to a healthy, productive, and principled citizenry. Tarlac, where our greatest resources are our people, our land. Strategically located at the heart of central Luzon in the Philippines, the province of Tarlac is landlocked by the 4 provinces of Pangasinan in the north, Nueva Ecija in the east, Zambales in the west, and Pampanga in the south. The capital city of Tarlac is 2.5 hours away from the city of Manila and 45 minutes away from Clark. Tarlac is an agricultural province composed of 305,000 hectares of land, of which 129,000 hectares is arable. Receiving the best sun radiance in the Philippines, Tarlac yields a bounty of resources that contribute to the country's food supply and exports. Local entrepreneurship is anchored on agricultural and natural products. Manufacturing and processing factories are present in industrial estates. Business process outsourcing services in information and technology parks. Tarlac is a convergence point of roads strengthened with an impressive network of expressways and national highways and is close to international airports, free ports, and seaports. It hosts a diverse set of attractions from historical and natural sites to progressive developments, including the new Clark City, the 9,450-hectare premier metropolis of the country. The vast plains and mountains of Tarlac serve as a landscape for outdoor pursuits. With a population of 1.5 million, Tarlac is a multicultural province composed of 7 heritage cultures: the Kapampangans, Pangasinenses, Ilocanos, Tagalogs, Phil-Chinese, Muslims, and Aitas. Tarlac Province highlights this diversity with the 6-day Kanlahi Festival, the only festival in the country that is celebrated throughout an entire province. There are 2 state universities, a provincial training hospital for 5 disciplines in medicine, and the recently launched University of the Philippines School of Health Sciences. Getting through the COVID-19 pandemic brought about creativity and innovation in providing services to the people and stabilizing the economy without sacrificing the health and safety of constituents and frontliners. A 24/7 emergency response team is fully operational, and police presence is strongly visible. Tarlac is a peaceful and environment-conscious province with sustainable and globally competitive agriculture, major logistics investments, and captivating tourist destinations with well-planned communities that are home to a healthy, productive, and principled citizenry. Tarlac, where our greatest resources are our people, our land. Strategically located at the heart of central Luzon and the Philippines, the province of Tarlac is landlocked by the 4 provinces of Pangasinan in the north, Nueva Ecija in the east, Zambales in the west, and Pampanga in the south. The capital city of Tarlac is 2.5 hours away from the city of Manila and 45 minutes away from Clark. Tarlac is an agricultural province composed of 305,000 hectares of land, of which 129,000 hectares is arable. Receiving the best sun radiance in the Philippines, Tarlac yields a bounty of resources that contribute to the country's food supply and exports. Local entrepreneurship is anchored on agricultural and natural products. Manufacturing and processing factories are present in industrial estates. Business process outsourcing services in information and technology parks. Tarlac is a convergence point of roads strengthened with an impressive network of expressways and national highways and is close to international airports, free ports, and seaports. It hosts a diverse set of attractions from historical and natural sites to progressive developments, including the new Clark City, the 9,450-hectare premier metropolis of the country. The vast plains and mountains of Tarlac serve as a landscape for outdoor pursuits. With a population of 1.5 million, Tarlac is a multicultural province composed of 7 heritage cultures: the Kapampangans, Pangasinenses, Ilocanos, Tagalogs, Phil-Chinese, Muslims, and Aitas. Tarlac Province highlights this diversity with the 6-day Kanlahi Festival, the only festival in the country that is celebrated throughout an entire province. There are 2 state universities.
Mabuhay for sharing this special song that I personally wrote 3 months after pandemic. The title of the song is Filipinas. Sa bawat pagsikat Sasaliw ng musikang likha natin sa ibayog ng sayaw. Sa ilaw ng buwan, kulay ng pagpinta, bayan ko, itatanghal kita. Tangal na bunga ng pagsisikap, ngayon'y magiting na ipagbubunyi. Pilipino ako, Pilipino ako, Pilipino ako. Ipagmamalaki kita, o Pilipinas ko mahal. Ipagtatanggol kita, o bayan kong sinilangan. Tahanan ang aking lahi, tuyan ang aking ibig, buong tapang buong giliw, ipagsisigaw. Pilipino ako, Pilipinas ko, Pilipino ako, Pilipino ko, Pilipinas bayan ko.
Please give it up for Lay Hoksun. Please welcome your host, Lynn Cuyuga.
Thank you so much, Miss Lay Hokson. It's truly a privilege to hear that original song from you. So good evening, everybody. Welcome to ISOCARP's closing ceremony for the 60th World Planning Congress, first international conference for new cities here at the new Clark City. Of course, I would like to start with the next part of the program, and I'd like to introduce the next person I'll be calling here on the floor. He said having freedom comes from looking at the source of inspiration. He loves to embrace both the modern and traditional, and he pushes forward to make Filipino architecture recognized worldwide. And here to give us a talk on modern Filipino architecture, please welcome our dear architect, Royal Pineda.
Everyone. Well, thank you so much for everybody to somehow be able to make it and join us in this conference, ISOCARP, the World Planning Congress. The first time the Philippines is hosting this kind of event, and we're very excited because this is an opportunity for us to share with you the identity and the variety of the Filipinos. And as mentioned, we would like to take this this experience to be able to share a philosophy of how this new Clark City or Clark came about. So let me just. So a while ago, I was actually with a group doing the workshop, and I was so happy to see all those things that actually took place when we were doing this project. So to make this event, I would say, more meaningful and to be more relatable, I'd like to share with you how we're able to put this project together. Again, this is your 60th anniversary, and as a tropical country, we believe that it is a very important thing for us, that I myself believe that the world is actually a potluck, and we are all equally important in this world. And I think it is very crucial that as a variety of this world, we refine ourselves so that we can all bring our gift to the party, to that potluck. And as we do that, we'll show you how we're able to create modern Filipino architecture and design. And that starts with the precepts. What you're seeing now is actually a manifestation of a philosophy. And this starts in the very concept of believing in the nature of things. The nature of things, I would like to relate to the simple scenario that when the event of the Southeast Asian Games was actually offered to the Philippines because one country backed out, the Philippines took the challenge, and there were several foreign consultants who actually said it needs a longer planning. It needed 3 years to plan and build it. But then we were only given 2 years to do it. So that nature of the event that was given to us was also part of being organic, being resilient as Filipinos. But I believe that this is also very much based on the core philosophy of who we are. Royal Pineda Plus believes in this very philosophy that I discovered 32 years ago. I believe that nature is always peaceful. That even an erupting volcano is actually peaceful. I believe in the concept of man is nature, that it's never man and nature. There is no duality. And this is a mindset that I needed to also to embrace, because whenever I think of man and nature, there is an effort to put it together. And it's different. The way you love nature is different when you have the word "and." So I needed to make it man is nature, so that I will respect and love nature the way I love myself. So as I do my architecture and my design, I do the same thing. And with this very concept, as I mentioned a while ago, I believe in the variety of the world, that we are all, again, equally important as the rest of the other places. And a while ago, I was talking about placemaking, I was talking about identity, and I mentioned about the same thing, the potluck. Because if you look at the world, nature placed the French in France, Italians in Italy, Indonesians in Indonesia, Japanese in Japan, the Filipinos in the Philippines. So my question to the Filipinos is like, though we have this identity crisis for the longest time, they keep saying, you know, we were colonized by so many, a Japanese stays and lives in a Japanese house, a French in a French chalet, or an Italian in an Italian house. I think the Filipino should fit in a Filipino house. There should always be an identity that we can call ours. And again, the potluck happens, and there is really no competition, because as we refine ourselves, we get to share ourselves as a gift to the world. And that identity becomes us as modern Filipino. So the root is really nature. When people ask me, Royal, what's Philippine architecture? I said, you know, if you keep getting inspired by many designs from all over the world, why don't you just look at the nature of the Philippines? Because anything that you design from the nature of the Philippines, or even if you focus here, the nature of Tarlac, what you're doing is actually you're inspired by the most ancient source of inspiration, and that's nature. So nothing can question that your inspiration if the inspiration is coming from the nature of the place and the nature of the people. Take note, it's never separate. It's never a dual thing. It's always oneness with nature. And I think the process is very important. And I think the process of design as planners, architects, and designers, it's very crucial to be truthful. Because at the end of the day, with the changing times and the technology, I think what's lacking and what's starting to diminish is authenticity. Because at the end of the day, it starts to become generic. But I think if we start looking at nature and understand that the response will be truthful, it's going to be organic, that the result is just a manifestation of the process. And that's what you see later. I will discuss also the reason why the stadium that we're able to build, instead of 3 years, we're able to build this in 18 months. No? We were designing and building this in 18 months. It was inspired by the Pinatubo, the crater. That's why we made it like the gray and the lava being the inside of the core of the stadium. And we patented the color that we wanted to claim as the active orange, because if you look at the structure, everything is actually inspired and from the lahar of the Pinatubo, which are actually the ashes from the mountains. And it actually became very abundant, and we made them as the architecture and the new fiber of the city. So by doing so, we're able to create an authentic identity, because there's no other lahar from Pinatubo in other countries. Using the Pinatubo lahar makes it right away a Philippine architecture. And adding the adrenaline, because it needed an adrenaline as a sports stadium, we needed to put the color of the lava. And that became, those frames that you see are actually inspired by the paroles or the lanterns of Tarlac and Pampanga. And it's a very tropical architecture. And this is what we're saying. The impossible was to complete it in 2 years. It was something that was critical for that time. There was no pandemic yet, so it was immovable. So with that, we were actually forced to do the possible. And the race against time was to put everything together in this 45-hectare land. And yesterday, during the first day, we were discussing also with ACOM, with Sylvester, that curve, because everything here was based on the contour of the land and the shape of the land. So authenticity is what we're targeting, what we're trying to achieve, what we're trying to put together. And that happened, as I've mentioned, during the Mount Pinatubo eruption. It was a devastation. But we're able to transform this into something that is, again, I believe that nature is peace. Nature was just providing something. And it's a matter of knowing and understanding how to use it. So during this eruption, of course, it was a big shock to the world, but the lahar became our fiber. So that's all that you see, all the plasters in this building and all the plasters in the rest of the other buildings are actually all lahar. So it's literally rising from the ashes. The idea is to be able to keep the authenticity of the place and to be able to express that as an architecture. And we needed to respond to the whole requirement. So we needed to prepare this to be stronger. And by the way, there was a question a while ago, why did they build this complex? It's because Manila, by the way, is we have this place and the fault line, and we're expecting the big one, the big earthquake. And our seat of government is actually in a liquefaction area. And we needed to build this because we needed an iCloud for Malacanang, or our seat of government. And this is the actual building that's supposed to be that iCloud. And it was a selection of site that this is the spot where it has the least fault lines in the entire Philippines, because the Philippines is full of fault lines. No? And that time, it was planned to be like that, but then the Southeast Asian Games came about, and that is why when the planners or the developers were asked by the government to build the sports facilities first instead of the other buildings, only because of the Southeast Asian Games. So it changed the whole planning, the whole process, but again, the master plan were actually followed from the beginning. Part of the concept of achieving modern Filipino architecture is, take note, we're not a first world country, but we're a progressing country. I don't believe that we're a poor country, but we need to create a roadmap to how to get to a modern Philippines, or I call it actually a better Philippines. Modernity for me is better. No? Modernity for me is betterment. And how do you do that? I have to coin it, because my fellow architects were also asking me, how do you get us there? So I have to say practical luxury, which is a paradox, because I believe that every Filipino deserves to live in luxury, and it can be done by design. And all these buildings were all within the Philippine budget. And again, you can decide for yourself if it's something that looks poor or looks less for somebody to use it. But because it's used for the Southeast Asian Games, and it was certified for the use of the sports, it's all international standard. No? So it's part of what we believe is the way to do it. And just to show you the practical luxury, during the World Architecture Festival, there was a competition, and the stadium, compared to the Tokyo Olympics stadium, was 1.3 billion, and again the 1.4 in the London stadium, and we're actually able to spend $78 million, and it was again appreciated by the World Architecture Festival, and that is just for us a proof of the concept of practical luxury, that there is no excuse in doing bad designs. It's not because there's little budget or small budget, we don't do good designs for the people. So I think just to give you an idea of how it all looked like before, again, everything was done within the 24-hour construction time. And again, the lahar were constantly being quarried from the rivers. And I think that was the challenge also in terms of collaborating with everybody. We had thousands of workers, Filipinos, working together to meet the deadline. And part of it is like we were designing it as we were building it. We needed to put together all the elements, all the steel structures, all of these things were actually poured concrete. As we were designing it, they were pouring concrete and within those steel structure. And what you'll notice is the structural is actually the architectural. There are no claddings, because what we wanted to showcase is the truthfulness of the architecture and the practicality of it, because any cladding just adds budget to the budget. No? So what you can see is the transition of how we're able to put this together with the timing of each columns. And architecturally, we needed to minimize all the components and also keep the tropicality of the architecture. So everything was prefabricated and tropically designed to make the stadium or the stadia pleasant and open. And it's similar to the concept and philosophy of our aquatic center. So the active orange, which we also patented as a color for the stadia, and it is owned by the Philippines as a color. And this is the same paint that maintains the Eiffel Tower to protect. That's why if you look at the orange color, it's still the same since 2018 or 19, and it was never repainted. No? So we can use the budget properly and allocate it. And again, the target was 3 years, but then we're able to meet it within the time frame of 18 months. So it became a very important standard for us. And by the way, the last structure that the Philippine government built as a sports center was, I think, 1930. So it was a very long time. We needed and we deserve a new sports stadium. The other one that I just flipped was actually the baklad or the fish pen. These are actually, I think there. Okay, this is actually a fish pen because the Philippines is an archipelago and we're surrounded by water. And this is a concept that was actually the inspiration for the aquatic center. And that is actually, those are actually shells. Again, as an aquatic center, we wanted to provide something that is natural as an inspiration. And these are the windows of the Philippine homes during the older times. And that's what you see as a translation of the architecture. It is an exploded and a grander scale of a baklad or a fish pen. But again, celebrating tropicality, having natural light, and putting together the simplicity of the structure and being able again to maintain and hit the deadline as per commitment. So I always say modern Filipino is about betterment because in the Philippines we have this concept of Filipino time, and they always say Filipino time is always late. But this time, modern Filipino is about betterment. So we were able to even do it ahead of time. So architecture and actually design is not just a record of a culture, but actually design is designing a culture. So as we plan cities, as we plan products, as we plan architecture, I think it's not just about taking the culture itself, but also designing a culture for the people. So I think everybody's familiar with the one during the opening. So again, the idea was to open the place because it's tropical. By the way, the requirement of the FINA for the temperature of the water for the pool is the actual temperature of the water and the sea water of the Philippines. That's why we're able to keep it open, because some of the other aquatic centers were actually required to be enclosed and to have a temperature control to maintain it. But because we're tropically like that, so it's just a matter of celebrating that tropicality and actually open it up and bring the natural light to the center, to the aquatic center. So as part of this city being started with the sports facilities, it became evident that the government should support growing this function, and that's why they also, again, added the National Academy of Sports. And this one is actually the bridge that we're supposed to visit. And just to give you an idea, again, somebody asked me about identity or placemaking a while ago, and she said, "Architect, can you tell me in one sentence what's placemaking?" So I said, in a modern, or I would say more updated and younger version, I said, I think it's as simple as saying it's Instagrammable. And if you ask your friend to take a picture of herself and you see a bridge, and you see that the bridge is only located in a place, in a space, and you identify the place, that is placemaking. Because if your friend took a picture and then you see the Eiffel Tower behind her, and she's actually in Tarlac, you'll be surprised. I mean, you have to ask her if she's really in Paris, because, again, that's a failure to do placemaking. No? This is an inspiration and a design that actually celebrates the lanterns of Pampanga and Tarlac. So the idea is to put together an architecture that becomes actually an inspiration of the Zambales Mountains. But if you actually turn and start to have an angle, you start to see the frame of the parol or the lanterns, which you'll see at the end of it. No? So the idea is, it's not just about the look. It's actually about the idea that you celebrated the culture and the people. And I was very happy to talk to somebody in Dubai, and she didn't know that I designed this bridge. But she was talking like an architect, because she was so proud to talk about the design being inspired by the lanterns of their place. So I think it's about giving dignity to people. And for us, architects and planners, functionality-wise, yes, we can bring people to the other side. With the same price, my challenge to the government that time was, can I bring those people to the other side with the same price, with the same time of delivery, but only I'll make them cross with dignity and pride. I think design can bring us all to that level if we can just keep pushing for what is the culture and the identity of the people. So this is actually Clark, their video that they created, and this was not filtered. They took this in one morning, and it followed the color of Clark's branding. So I think there's an audio. There's none. Okay. So what you see is actually the bridge with its form and its presence. And right now, actually, it became a tourist destination for the locals. You know? And this is what I think is quite important, identity, placemaking. If we can define the people through architecture and planning, it would be nice. So the airport itself is actually an inspiration, a design inspired by the Zambales Mountains. And again, the tropicality of the frames was actually inspired by the paroles. And the tropicality of the atmosphere is because, again, the Philippines is all about tropicality. And the floors, actually, you won't see it here, but it's actually also has a pattern of the lahar. And right now, we're developing a bamboo, and part of this is what we're doing with Tarlac. We're developing the modern Philippine timber, which is actually rhizome, building and designing this glue laminated bamboo. This is actually a glue laminated spruce from Austria, but this time we're collaborating with the Philippine manufacturer, with the American groups, with their technology to do this product. And so we can now create our own timber, which is made of bamboo, and we're planting them all in Tarlac, in the mountains of Tarlac. So part of practical luxury, with this, with the budget that was given to us, the Philippines was able to receive an award, being one of the 5 of the most beautiful airports in the world. So what we're saying is, it's really, again, design that can uplift the people. No? And this applies to everyone, because there was one time when I spoke in Dubai and I expressed the concept of practical luxury. An architect from Brazil came to me and said, "Architect, can I borrow practical luxury and bring it to Brazil?" I was in the counter, I was checking out of the hotel, and then he said, "Because our country is similar to your country, it's tropical, it's rich, but then I think the idea that practical luxury brings is empowering creative people to refine and develop their lives through design." So again, the proof of that is to even have a modest airport and again be recognized as an identity as Philippine architecture. So again, Modern Bayanihan is about collaboration. We would like to share this, and we keep sharing this to everybody because it's a mindset that the Filipinos are here to create a new culture, a culture of betterment, a culture that will keep us progressive, a culture that will keep us dreaming, that will keep us discovering, and that will keep us evolving as people. And that is because we dream of a modern or a better Philippines. We dream of this betterment. And one of our biggest dreams, and this day on the 60th anniversary of ISOCARP in this World Planning Congress, we would like to commit and we would like to present to you that we are dreaming of a carbon neutral Philippines. Tarlac heading it, pioneering it, but the Philippines contributing in a global idea, a global concern, that we don't need to be first world to help solve the world's problem. We can help as a country, as a progressing country, we can help in solving and fixing the problem of the world through our small efforts of having a carbon neutral Philippines. Thank you so much, and mabuhay.
Thank you so much, Architect Royal Pineda. We now proceed at this point with a Congress recap. It's a summary of the content of the tracks and the do track that happened all throughout the Congress. And for that, I would like to call in the General Rapporteur of ISOCARP. We have Mr. Andy Simarmata.
Okay, thank you, Excellency, Governor Susan, President Pietro, President-elect Elizabeth, Secretary Frank, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends. Before I start the recap, I would like also ask your permission to bring the conference team's member that's still here. I would like to ask Mark, Feli, Gerald, Lara, Dusko, Simba, Teti, and Leah to join us here. Please give him applause. Give them applause. Where are they? Dusko, Simba, Mark, Gerard, Leah, and Betty. Over there. Great. Maybe change the slide. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good. So, we would like to thank you all for your active participation and support during these 3 days with seminar in the 60th ISO Cup Diamond World Planning Congress and the first international conference on new cities. As the General Rapporteur, I would like to take this opportunity to summarize the key points and recommendations discussed throughout the 3 plenaries, 7 special sessions, 12 track sessions, and of course, later on, special do track. So let's start with the track session report. I would like to give time to Mark for the track 1.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. For track 1, so we had a total of 3 sessions, 15 presenters who have discussed hacking metro cities, metro and cities, transport, and sustainable buildings. So we have a couple of key takeaways from our session. The first is we believe that cities cannot be regenerative on its own. So cities will need to work together, collaborate, and coordinate because the systemic challenges will need to be addressed by collaborating as a whole. So this can be done through the presentations that were shared, through participative planning, through digital technologies, AI. So there was a presenter who shared about AI, how they were able to use futures thinking. So that was very interesting. It was a combination of backcasting, and then through the workshops, they were able to gather keywords which were used to generate AI digital images, and then this was able to create a visualization of the vision. And another key takeaway is the need for identifying the culture and nature in terms of a regenerative city. So around us is actually a model of a regenerative because as Architect Pineda was sharing earlier, 30 years ago, this was covered in lahar, almost 10 meters high. So imagine that. We are here living after 30 years. And one of the key moments for me personally during this activity was the activity in the River Park yesterday, where our brother, Mang Jani Manaita, shared his story. So I think that's a key element of pushing forward with culture and nature. So from track 1, thank you very much, and let's have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And now for the second track, Felicimo. Feli, where are you? No? Not here? Okay. So I just read what the track 2 has already recap. Basic human needs and certain specific concern and man-made facility like fertility and private shop can affect community and city development. Thank you, Feli and friends. And now we are going to the track 3. We have Dusko, Leah, and also Gerald. Your time.
Thank you. Track 3 is quite special for our group. For the ISOCARP is being hosted by Philippines, which is a shopping mall of disasters. So we've seen the track 3 has seen 3 sessions with a total number of presenters, 16. We've seen sessions on policy to practice, scaling innovations for climate resilient cities, designing climate adaptive urban environments, and a session on culture-centered, community-driven resilience, planning, and action. Session 3.1 has shown that nature-based solutions increasingly comprise the mainstream of urban planning. Evermore, planners' decisions are backed by sound ecological science based on methodologies such as environmental carrying capacity, environmental assimilative capacity, and carbon sinks estimation. Session 3.2 reiterated the critical need to integrate environmental factors into urban planning. Sustainable design solutions and monitoring technologies are enabling many innovative ways to mitigate the impacts of climate change, especially the rising incidence of flooding and extreme heat. Climate adaptive planning is central to building cities that are resilient to climate disruptions, but also conducive to human well-being and natural habitat restoration. Session 3.3 meanwhile highlighted the need for the growing ecological approach to urban planning to not become just another form of environmental engineering. Rather, it must include human needs for community belonging and cultural identity. In planning for climate resilience, we need to acknowledge and examine the impact and role of human behavior, identities on our resource decisions. So in summary, Track 3, Climate Adaptive and Resilient Cities, led by my colleagues, Dushko Bogonovic and Lara Togonon de Castro, has shown that climate mitigation and adaptation are increasingly dominating the spatial planning agenda. This is an encouraging trend. It may enable us to convert cities from destroyers of our planet's ecosystem to regenerators. Yet we must not forget the eternal ideal of planning to be holistic. It is imperative that we seek a proper balance between ecocentric and human-centric approaches. And that's from the Track 3 sessions.
Thank you. You're out. And Track 4, Simba Sitapi. Time is yours.
Thank you. I would like you to give another round of applause, specifically for Julio and Ridwan, who are not here this evening, but were in fact instrumental in the outcome or the rollout of the track. So Track 4 sought to investigate the impacts of technology on a city's regenerative and resilient aspects. I must begin by noting that Track 4 was undersubscribed, which to me suggests that as a profession, maybe we have a little bit more work to do in terms of our embrace of technology, and we need to be more open to embracing it more wholeheartedly, even if circumspectly. In the track, we sought to look at the impact of technology, both at street level, but also in the planner's office. At street level, we observed through a study in Turkey how technology, whether we are proactive in accepting it or not, will impact our city's futures. For example, through the movement patterns of people, through the changing movement patterns of people through the cities. In the planner's office, we learned how governance, specifically e-governance, will not on its own solve all the problems we encounter in planning. In fact, we got quite a scathing critique about how it will not excise the rot that exists, but must be combined with other measures that are deeply culturally and contextually rooted. Furthermore, we learned that the importance of human health in the regenerative city can be contributed to by the use of technology and e-governance to improve the access of people to healthcare facilities. We also learned that smart planning tools, such as the Smart Digital City model, can really help proposals be more accessible to the general public, but in and of themselves are also more accessible to us as planners because they are, in many cases, surprisingly cost-effective. And perhaps like some of us, perhaps like me, some of us are a bit afraid of technology. Our last speaker showed us that regenerative AI is in fact your friend. But at the same time, it's hardly a replacement for people. Indeed, it can help us as planners go back to doing that which is important, engaging with people and engaging with place. And so with all of that, we saw how, in fact, technology and digital tools can move us towards really developing a human-centric and nature-centric city that is, in fact, regenerative. Thank you.
Track 5, Teddy, please come aside and time is yours.
Good evening, everybody. I am responsible for track 5, which is titled Culturally Rooted and Inclusive Healthy Cities and Town, A Sense of Place. We have quite a number of abstracts being presented in this track, and we end up having 3 sessions on this track. The first session examined the values, beliefs of places in new cities and town, which explored the how values and vision are instilled in planning new cities and town, despite the fact in a modern situation like right now, new challenges come up like climate change, digital living, the need for clean energy, and resource protection. So the situation set in the 21st century still make us look back at what was vision in the 20th century. So the situation in the 20th century geared us toward preparing our cities for the 21st century. And we also explore how the facade of new towns and cities being presented by approach such as gender-based cultural engagement and exploration on a historical landscape helps create a town that is new and acceptable. The session 2, talking about creating a sense of place toward healthy and well-being in new cities and town, explore how a sense of place can be felt, engaged, created, and recreated continually by how the residents produce and reproduce their life. Through nurturing the specific event or activities that connect the communities and the place. Even the use of musical instrument define a village. And so we're exploring more deeper about the cultural experience contribute to the creation of new cities and town, such as how 24-hour cities can be triggered. 24-hour city triggered by economic motive actually have social implication, and that can include the fertility issues. So that's one of the interesting part too. In a session 5.3, we look at the planning concept and the instrument used for creating healthy and well-being of cities. And in this, we explore again on the issues such as informal sectors, trading centers, agricultural trading centers, the use of transfer of development rights, and seeing how we recreate our cities again. In conclusion, track 5, giving a place to the dimension of culture, bring new cities and town towards our continual regenerative effort that can enrich our evolution of our settlements. The 21st century's challenge emphasize on various aspects that wasn't experienced in the past. Adding cultural aspect will make our town and cities ready to deal with the future of 21st century. That's from the track 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Teti. And Miss One, Feli, would you mind also to reiterate what you found so far? Please.
Thank you, and apologies for coming late. So basically, for the brownfield and urban regeneration. So we have had 3 presentations, and they all line up with the involvement of the community, taking into context the concerns of the community, especially if the development will be pushing for social justice and pro-people. So with our 3 presentations from Armenia, Bangladesh, and Indonesia, the future of coming up with sustainable and people-friendly environment and communities are very much possible. Challenges can be hurdled, of course, through proper planning and pro-people strategies. I guess that will be all. Thank you.
Thank you, Belly. So, colleagues and friends, I just want to add 4 paragraphs. Be with us. So, considering what we heard from track sessions and what we can grasp from the plenary session, our sustainable future depends on how we can develop regenerative cities. Regenerative cities are needed to make our cities more sustainable because from 100 years to another 100 years, decades to decades, city has been evolving. Following the technology advancement, especially digital acceleration in the last 5 years, and meeting people needs that are continuously growing. Today, 56% of world population, or about 4.4 billion people, lives in the city. We are in the urban planet, but our Earth has planetary boundaries. Although cities might only occupy 3% land, but they represent 60 until 80% of energy consumption and 75% carbon emission. As human beings, we need to take responsibility not to only regenerate our settlement to live, but also ecosystem where we get our food, energy, medicine, and our other daily life needs. Regenerative cities should also take into the consideration the increasing disaster risk due to climate change impact and triple planetary crisis. Disasters from earthquake and storms to flood and droughts kill approximately 40,000 to 50,000 people per year. This is the average over the last few decades. Manila, Ho Chi Minh, we heard on the first day of seminar, has reminded us that we should be aware and ready to the worst condition. Also the reason why this building has been built by the government of Philippines. Build forward better should be our principle to develop regenerative cities. So it is our professional responsibility to ensure the regenerative space. It protects the environment, develops the local economy, and benefits all. We should plan and design space with nature and people, ensure the minimum negative impacts to the carrying capacity, universal design for all, especially for disabled and elderly. If we build a new town, no matter on which scale we are dealing with, we need to incorporate the existing communities, local communities, and understand their local behavior and culture. It's never easy to maintain local in the globalization phenomenon, but it is our duty to ensure the justice and equality for all. As ever mentioned by J.M. de Caceres, the author of the book, The Principle of Planology, the space for everything and everything in its place. It is our job to put harmony people with nature, rich and poor, investor and community, elderly and children. So let us work together across boundaries to truly be champions of change as we move forward together through our society, ISOCAP. Therefore, from New Clark City, let's convey the message to our society in Siena to regenerate our city to be more sustainable, resilient, and inclusive. Thank you very much, and give applause to our track conference, and see you again in Siena. Thank you. And then, for intermezzo, we have photo competition, and we have already select the photo winner. Okay, the first, and thank you for the Madam Jacqueline for the gift and also others sponsor. First one for the buildings category. Lloyd Carlo Ibarra. You see here, come to forward. Come. Second, share your moment through the lens for the nature. Siri Rus. Anyone? Come. Siri, are you here? If not, friends or colleagues to repeat. Siri, thank you. Come. The daily people. Dan. Gandhi Mardiansa from Indonesia. Thank you. Madam Jacqueline, please come forward to share gift. Because Madam Jacqueline is Indonesian ambassador, so please come. Give applause to Madam Jacqueline. Yeah, come here. Thank you, Tarlac Province. Tatak Tarlac. Yeah. So please, yeah. Okay. Again, thank you for your participation. See you again. And I give to our MC. Thank you.
Thank you to the General Rapporteur of ISOCARP, Mr. Andy. And of course, for the closing roundtable or the closing of debate, I'd like to call in the moderator, Mr. Guy Perry. Mr. Guy Perry, our moderator for the closing roundtable. Okay, I'd like to call in Mr. Chris Rollo, Mr. Greg News, Secretary Acosta, Sir Norman Brito, Sir Frank of ISOCARP, Sir Giacomo, Sir Mark, and of course from our end, I think our governor has agreed to be part of this roundtable. Once again, Governor Susan.
Okay. So, some of our concluding comments. Obviously, events like this open up more questions than they answer definitively. but I think we're finding many answers that are going to help us guide not just development in the Philippines, but in other parts of the world, because we come from really the four corners of the world. And obviously, Siena coming up in a few weeks will be a continuation of discussions, but of a very different nature and a very different context. I find this context especially exciting because these are the kind of environments where the world will be growing, where urbanization will occur. So how do we achieve that next generation of thinking? I think that architect Royal, I'm not sure if he's going to be up on the stage with us here, but I think he pointed very elegantly and eloquently to a possible future, a way of interpreting how we shape our environment going forward. And brilliant presentation and truly inspirational. And something that's very dear to my heart is to see local architects doing exceptional work in their own context. As the world becomes globalized, it becomes so important that the locals are shaping their environment and, in a sense, helping themselves develop the quality of their environments and the quality of the skills that are going to be necessary to build in the future. So I think, of course, the obvious question that we would ask is, has our notion of regenerative cities evolved over the last few days? Have we become perhaps more precise in what that means? I think we had a lot of wonderful answers that came out of the last set of presentations. But I'd just like to see if there's anything that has really come out of our discussions that any of you would like to highlight at this time. Is there something about the regenerative cities that distinguishes it from, say, the sustainable city, which was really the buzzword that we were using for the last decade or two, even, in many contexts? Is there something that is more cyclical about this approach than what we would have seen with the notion of just the sustainable city? So perhaps we can start if there's anyone that would like to volunteer. Otherwise, I'm going to be going around with the microphone and putting you on the spot. So I give you the chance, about 5 seconds. Otherwise, I'm coming at you. Okay, so we're going to start off. Here we go.
Thank you. Regenerative as a concept, there is something which is slightly distinct from sustainable development, which is the sense of stewardship and custodianship, which came out really strongly over the last couple of days, and that embodied inherently connection that we are part of nature, which eloquently came out also in the concluding remarks from the local perspective here, that we really need to nurture that, and using that embodied energy in us to really return this whole narrative around as we move forward.
I think that's an excellent point, that we've perhaps evolved to realize that we are part of nature, that it's no longer we're going to do a better job, but it's actually that we are part of nature, and if we don't coexist, our shelf life is going to be pretty limited. So I think that's a very, very important point, and that is, to me, a distinct evolution from the notion of just sustainability. It's something that's going beyond sustainability. So I believe, and again, thank you for your inspirational presentation. Here we are at Clark. It's a context that I've known from 10 years ago, working on the master plan, the original competition with ACOM. And I have to say that in some ways I'm extraordinarily impressed. I'm impressed by the architecture. I'm impressed by the connectivity that has been made with the city. But on the other hand, I was hoping upon arrival that I'd see more, that there'd be more life on the site, and not just during specific events, whether it's athletic or our own today. I realize the strategic role that this building has. But one of the questions I would have is, what would be the most important next steps? Because having been involved with a lot of big projects, you don't want them to get stale. You want them to maintain a certain elan, and a positive elan. So I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you, what do you think are the next steps? Please.
Well, it's actually the constant question. No? I think it is something that as planners and architects, we really design to address our projects for the people. But I think it's also, it needs a policy. Again, we need the government to also support it. Because right now, the issue here in Clark is actually, for me, it's government-owned. And if you want to bring people here and you want to create residentials, condominiums, the first question, I think, was, will we own the property? So that point, because it's lease, Filipinos, they actually selling a condo to a Filipino is already difficult because they always say there's no land. And now to even buy a condo and it's a lease, it's a question. So that being an issue, I think, somehow limits the growth and somehow the activity.
So there are different lease terms. There are relatively short leases that might be 20, 30 years. A typical lease is a 99-year lease. Sometimes they're 999-year leases, as you have in London, in the western, and by the way, nicest parts of London. So any thoughts about that?
Let me just add to that. BCDA, it manages and is government handles the New Clark City. There is already a bill and passed in the lower house of Congress and also in the Senate, appropriating 5% of the land of New Clark City to be freehold, yes, but purely for residential. The delay in the development was caused not more than anything. I think the whole world stalled because of the pandemic. That was that really held us back. But there are ongoing developments. There are developments of 400 hectares in certain areas. You might not, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's golf courses and resorts being under construction right now. And I believe that BCDA also continues to sign up with new investors already. In fact, the provincial government has land here, which we've signed a lease already for an investor on data center. And several schools are on the way too. So those are the developments coming up.
That's fantastic news. We see this fabulous location, this great opportunity. And do you have some thoughts to share on this subject, please?
Oh, okay.
Yes, thank you. I would just like to add, because this from an architectural standpoint and a policy standpoint, I would like to add in the landscape architecture lens. So we've been talking about ownership or how we appropriate spaces, especially in the interior. But a very good point was raised. If we sponsor for a variety of activities, especially in the outside, we can breathe more life into the area. We already have the New Clark City River Corridor, which is already an award-winning space. It features a lot of biodiverse elements already. The flora and fauna there, they were retained miraculously. And if we can create more spaces that can be used by more demographics, like more of the community around it, and connect these spaces to actual transport hubs that are connected to bigger cities outside, we can invite more people and have this a better sprawling ground.
And I think that this notion of celebrating the landscape and the landscape architecture, this is exactly that nexus between nature and man that you so beautifully described and reiterated. I wonder, as development is happening, I mean, Metro Manila is one of the largest cities on the planet. It continues to grow much faster than some of those other large cities. And obviously that there's going to be an impetus to growth to the north because you have this space. The question is, are there dimensions of inclusivity that need to be incorporated, which may sometimes be difficult to pull off when it's a private sector development? Now, this is a kind of public-private sector, in some ways, hybrid situation. But one of the, there's the adjacent village, which has many of the residents that once lived in the area, and they had to be displaced after the eruption. How do we see including the local people into this beautifully developing story of Clark New City? So how do we see it? How do we see their role going forward?
Thanks for the question, because that's we have been curating the Do Track.
Yes.
So a track of the conference where we also went out there, and one of the locations we visited was exactly the village of Cristo Rey, which is bordering New Clark City.
Yes.
And funny enough, it's also a new city that was built in the 20th century, and had people relocated there.
Yes.
Also, the property issue is coming there because people at some point have given the right to own the land. Mm-hmm. And we see how also the dichotomy between the planned city and the lived city was overcome by appropriation. It takes time, but the town looks bustling, and there's a lot of activities. Many houses have been reconverted into shops and markets. So was quite actually telling to visit that place. So one of the things that we stimulated during the discussion in the Do Track was how can we connect the project of New Clark City with Cristo Rey, which is basically contains the people that actually will work here and possibly will live here. We actually had the chance to enter a meeting at the Barangay Council, and we asked about New Clark City, and everybody was very enthusiastic. They would love to move here as soon as the town picks up, the development picks up, and the activities start to sprout. I believe that the connection with the surrounding is one of the key aspects of new cities. They cannot just land anywhere, but they need to really embed in the context. Physical connection, but also giving opportunities to people around, be included in the process.
I think that it's excellent to take forward this idea, too, of how that vibrancy that you saw in that community might also be brought into this community. So it's not just a physical connection, there is something about the nature of the people here, this vibrancy which people all over the world admire about the Philippines. There's this wonderful energy. How do you bring that into a new city? It's a real challenge. Please.
Well, yes, sometimes we learn more from our children than from our parents. So I think you don't have to look very far, just 1 kilometer from here. You can learn very much from how a new town can be a very vibrant community with many flaws. I mean, there are many flaws in that community that you actually want to address here in a different way. It's not a very green town, although it has many trees and it has narrow streets that makes it very walkable with some shade. Things to learn from for here. So you don't always have to look very far away. That's one element, but that needs, of course, a regional perspective. And as ISOCARP, it's not, let's say, by coincidence that we do not only reach out to urban planners or city planners, but also to regional planners. And one of the things we really advocate is a better integration of urban planning into regional planning. Yes, and not just for metropolitan areas, but also for these kind of hybrid areas. And we call that a kind of polycentric development. Not with a clear, always with a clear hierarchy. It can be based on a functional typology. They have different markets and different vocations and so on, different positions in the national economy. That's fine. So I don't suggest that a new Clark City becomes the parent of Cristo Rey, but there should be some kind of family bonding. And I also think that New Clark City needs also its own parent. in the sense of a mentor. It's quite particular that you develop a new city not as a satellite of an existing city. Most new cities, as we have seen from the British example, have been developed around existing metropolitan cities to decongest them. In some way, you could make the case for New Clark City as a kind of satellite for Manila, but let's be honest, the distance is quite significant. And if you fill up the corridor in between with all kind of new developments like another additional airport, and of course very nearby you have the Clark International, that needs really more regional integration and maybe also a clear connection of New Clark City to Manila. And these are the things that planners can actually activate, give meaning, underpinned with clear guiding principles, planning concepts, and so on. So I think we only peeled the first layers of the onion, yes? And so we're really willing to keep on partnering with you. We are very, very thankful for being here, and especially having the province of Tarlac the host, because the province could be that integrative governance framework. So that's really a big call. Thank you.
Excellent comments. I'm going to build on that line of thinking. Is the connection to Manila really an urgent connection at this time for the development to occur in a timely fashion here? I know there's a rail connection that's been in the planning for decades. It's still not here.
Yes.
How important is that connection to the ultimate success and appropriate development of New Clark City?
Manila to Tarlac is 125 kilometers. The railway station to Clark Airport is already under construction. The second phase, which will connect Clark to New Clark City, the President has already approved the acquisition of right-of-way, so that for 2025. And the third phase will be all the way to Tarlac City, where that branches out to northern Luzon and to the eastern borders. But apart from that, I think Tarlac and New Clark City has the most access to different expressways. We have the TPLEX, North Luzon Expressway, SCTEX, and there's a new expressway that's coming up, which is the NALEX, connecting Tarlac all the way to the Bulacan Airport. This is all ongoing at the moment. Yeah.
So a very interesting question. We have the airport, eventually the Manila airport, the current airport will be closed, as the new airport will be open to the north. But we're also to the north of Manila, so you essentially have two airports on the same side of the city. Do you see the airports as having different roles in the future? Or are they basically going to be competing for those same travelers, the same airlines, as the city continues to develop? There's no doubt that the city the size of Manila needs more than one airport. But it's quite interesting that they happen to be on the same side of the city, which is very rare.
Yes. Well, I think that's government to, well, we're expecting here, Clark, if it's fully operational, to handle 12 million passengers a year, and that's building up. And Bulacan is still a long way off, I believe. So if it's going to compete, that'll be in the future, maybe 10 years down the line still. So it's a preparation, yes.
Right. So it might be important to cement the importance of the airport for the people of Manila, even though there'll be another airport coming online relatively soon. Now, the new rail line, will it be passing through the other airport site as well, or it'll be coming directly to New Clark City, to the Clark Airport and New Clark City?
The existing North Commuter Rail, I don't believe it's going to pass. It's going to pass Bulacan, but I'm not sure.
It'll
probably, yes, it will serve the airport. But probably in the future, yes, they will link it.
Okay, very good. I'm going to come back to the question of how do we integrate people of all economic classes into the future of New Clark City. Any thoughts about that? I mean, UN Habitat. This is at the heart. This is at the heart of what you do, and this is always a challenge in new cities. I know, for example, in Chandigarh in India, it was a real challenge. It was really just for a certain class of people, and continues to be effectively. So, how do you see a society that is more integrated in New Clark City than is perhaps often the case in the Philippines?
Yes. A city is a place where people live. And a city can only be a city if people live there. Down to the family level, what is that space where people live? That's houses. Therefore, houses and housing is a very important part of any city plan and any city development. When you talk about housing, of course, it's a very complex concept, no? But I would like to emphasize on the continuum of housing and tenurial rights. When we say housing, it's not just about full ownership of house and lot. We talk about the different housing needs of people over different phases of their life. So me, I might, at this point in my life, I may already need a house and lot. But during my early days, I may just need to have a rental space. Or I may just need to rent, during my student days, I just may need a dormitory. Things like that. So this has to be considered in a housing plan. Housing does not have to be, owned and a lot, a category. So I think that has to be considered in the housing plan, and that will also address issues of affordability and also spatial planning. So that's why it's important to really already have that in place, because unless you provide housing in a place, people will not live there, it will not come alive.
And you're seeking a variety of housing, correct?
Yes.
My experience in development is that you can be as profitable doing modest housing as you can doing luxury housing. Yes. And I think that this is something that's going to be very important as the community develops and goes forward, that you're going to need to be served by all classes of people, because there are many, many different roles that take part in the successful city. I think that everything we're discussing here is pretty much universal to any large city, new city development that would occur, whether it's in the Philippines, whether it's Indonesia, throughout Southeast Asia, I would say even South Asia, probably Africa as well, grappling with many of the same issues. And I think it's wonderful that we're sitting at the heart of a new city that is in the process of being developed. But my experience also is the bigger these projects, the more challenging they can be at certain critical times. And obviously, it's wonderful to see the stewardship of Governor Yap, and that she is being proactive to the kinds of issues that I think many were concerned with, about the opportunity for developers to come in, privatize, to eventually freehold or long-term leasehold in some cases probably. How do you select the developers? So this is both a specific question to Governor Yap, but also how would you specifically go about finding the right developers? Because there are big developers that can do amazing things, but they're not always appropriate for the nature of the development, especially if there's a certain philosophy behind the development that may not coincide with their typical practices. So are there certain criteria that you would look for in developers? And I'm going to ask some of our other members of our panel to also talk about that, because there are a lot of different developers out there. And what would you be looking for to find your ideal developers?
My concern is not just New Clark City. Yes. It's already in good hands. There's planning. There's some kind of framework to work with. My problem is outside, where growth just spurts without any planning.
Right.
So that's why I had ISOCARP come in, is that how we can, like you said, the satellite cities must work together. Inside New Clark City, I'm sure BCDA has laid out their guidelines and requirements for people who want to come in and invest. But like you said, Cristo Rey, I have 511 barangays in my province. Cristo Rey is the biggest and the youngest barangay with 35,000 people. So, but they're sprouting, they're developing so fast without any planning. So how do we integrate it? We don't want it looking so third world, and you have New Clark City all modernized, right beside it. This is a mistake already done, we can see in Manila. So you see the disparity of modern development to the old development.
Right.
So, I bring in investors not only for New Clark City, but especially outside, so that the other places and locations are not left behind.
I think it's a very interesting point, because I think one of the keys to success, I'm going to come back from the UN Habitat perspective in a moment and see what you think, but I think it's actually very important to help the development of smaller developers. So those smaller developers can play a role in a planned environment, whether it's within New Clark City or outside New Clark City, because after all, they are often closer to the market, if you will. They're very tight with the communities. Is there a way to, in a sense, catalyze their involvement and help them up their game? Because I find that sometimes they struggle at the outset, and they do perhaps not qualitative development. Even if there's a plan, they end up doing something that's not very attractive. Is there a way to, in a sense, create a cell that would help those smaller developers, those mom and pop developers, actually excel and be able to compete in a positive way with other players in the market? I'm going to let you answer, then we're going to have a perspective.
First of all, Governor Yap and I served in the House of Representatives. So let me use first a framework of legislation and policy making. We always say, and I take it also from Architect Royal Pineda's earlier intervention, that for anything that comes out in form, you must first really trace it back to a philosophy, or you use precepts. We always say in legislation, Congresswoman Yap then would know this all too well, that you begin with a philosophy, you begin with a overarching framework, and because that is in distilled form, that becomes policy. That informs policy, and policy in legal form becomes law. And as a lawmaker of many years, we always say that if you ask specific questions about developers or land use or the percentages or the ratios for arable as opposed to watersheds, etc., then you need the framework of law. And law becomes, it can be your greatest ally in all of what we're talking about, but it could also be your greatest impediment. I speak from the experience, just very quickly, from the fact that when I was a member of the cabinet of the late President Benigno Aquino III, we built under his watch and my watch as member of his cabinet, the first ever green climate smart building of the Philippine government, and that is in the National Ecology Center in Manila, in the heart of Quezon City, and that is the Laguna Lake Development Authority. It stands as the BERDE certified, LEED, to this day, the only, first ever, but the only still climate smart green building of the Philippine government. And why is that so? It should not be. That we built that in 2014, and that was during the term of President Aquino. Because it came to the attention of government, and when I say government, it's all the other agencies that regulate housing and building. And now we have a new department, and we can talk about that. DSHUD, the Department of Settlements and Human and Urban Development. That's a new department. But before that, the regulatory bodies were really largely ombudsman and commission and audit. And long story short, there is no other green building of the kind we built during our time, because the commission and audit came out with circulars saying you cannot have green standards because that would go against the very precept that buildings should be, you can only pass audit if you're bidding. Governor Yap knows this all too well. And so you go against the very, because they'll say, oh, green buildings are more expensive. That will never pass audit, the audit trail and the audit framework. So again, you go back to the law. There should be a law now, and I'd left Congress by then, but I said, if I could go back, and I hope I would at time, that's really one thing. Like there should be a green building, smart climate, smart framework that would inform policy on like this, like a new Clark City, but make it also not just because it's habitable and it's green, but it is because it's practical and it can actually, by law, be protected from the regulatory rigmarole, right, of government, as it is. So again, I say, law is challenging because lawmaking, because it can really be your greatest ally and enabler, but it can still be, in our experience, the stumbling block, the impediment of all of it. So again, law. Lawmaking, proper policy, and again, the intricacies that have to go into that kind of a process.
And it can be an even bigger stumbling block for the small players. They don't have the ammunition, they don't have the staff to actually go through this whole process. Could you streamline, because LEED has a lot of requirements that maybe make sense in the United States or in the UK if it's BREEAM or whatever, but I've often found that it, in fact, I did some work with Bloomberg, and Bloomberg said, well, these LEED aspects are fine, but these don't make sense. And so he would go ahead and develop offices, et cetera, that were based on his principles of sustainability. I mean, to a certain extent, can the region, and eventually the Philippines, but you be the leader to set some more, shall we say, maybe simplified standards, where the targets are not so hard to achieve that you don't need to have an army of people going through, because, you know, the LEED stamp, I think, I'm not saying it's not important, it still is, but it may not be as important in certain contexts. Architect Royal has done some wonderful buildings, whether they're LEED or not, I don't really care. I think they're great and they have a lot of common sense. So might that be a way forward to actually create a more simplified basis upon which to establish sustainability rules? Any thoughts, please?
A while ago I mentioned about truthfulness, Guy, and I think it's related to these things. And again, it's a very organic process. It's actually common sense to be truthful, and I think it's about freedom, because if you always feel that the best is outside, then you will always copy it. You know, even to the point that you're copying the mistakes, and you're copying something that doesn't work for you. So I think if you're truthful, there's a guiding principle, there's a precept that tells you this works for the Filipinos, this works for us. Then identify that, refine it, better it, champion it.
And maybe simplify it too.
And, well, because the point of refining it is making it work for you.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, I'm not going to spend 10 billion for a building that will perform the same way if I build a 2 billion building. I mean, it's like it's not being prudent as a Filipino government if it's for the government. So I think in the end that principle of truthfulness applies to, it's universal. It can happen to any place in the country, I mean in the world. So I think if that becomes the mindset of the Filipinos, I mean, and any other countries, I think we can be able to achieve design and luxury. And I say luxury by design. So that's my point of view.
At the level of the landscape, there's a very interesting presentation yesterday about the carbon capture capability of different trees. You know, for example, mahogany. But I asked a tough question. It was not a very fair question. I asked, okay, if I have to plant 500 trees right now, what tree do I plant? and there wasn't an answer yet. And that's not a criticism. But the important thing is we need to be kind of thinking that on the one hand, we have a sustainability cycle where we have more and more capacity to analyze. But on the other hand, development, especially in places like the Philippines or Indonesia, is accelerating. So we need to be able to react in real time. So how do we, in a sense, bring that also to the landscape strategy? Because these are transformative potential strategies for a landscape. And you can get it right, you can get it wrong, you can leave it alone. You know, what would your suggestions be to the next steps in New Clark City? Just a quick example. I find that in the middle of the day, it's hard to walk from the housing to here because there's no shading.
Yes.
But 8 years ago, when that was built, more or less, had trees been planted, they would already be shading. So there is a timeline that is relevant in these rapidly developing countries. So, please.
Yeah, so well, we have to understand that landscape design isn't, it takes time for the softscape materials to grow. It's not like architecture when you can pour concrete and it's there. Yeah, we cannot plant mature trees. They will die. So you have to start with the seedlings. There will be a time, as it's mentioned in our track earlier this morning, there is a certain level of investment when you do the landscape. So you have to look forward. And echoing Architect Royal's idea of truthfulness, he also mentioned authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
We often forget that here in the Philippines, we are a multicultural country. What works for a certain group of people might not work for another. So you just have to really dig deep and create and foster more spaces of participatory planning so that you can get the needs of the people that you're working with. You get the needs of the people who will reside in your spaces so that your spatial programming, all of the key elements that you will put in your design will work for these people. That will magnify, that will actually solidify the authenticity that our architect Royal is saying. And, you know, we won't have a specific Filipino style, but we will have many different Filipino styles that we can choose from that would, that is a reflection of the rich tapestry of the Philippines. And I thank you.
Fantastic. Okay. Yes, please.
Yeah, when we talk about urban development, a lesson that we learned looking at projects around the world, and especially from Northern Europe, but also South America, where this model is kind of championed or in more socialist countries, let's say, we understood that actually the best results in terms of sustainability and social inclusion are when you target directly the users of the projects, which the bad news for big developers is that they are out of the picture in this model, but there must be some space in developing a city where you allow people to develop very small developments, like cooperative housing, for example, or people to self-develop their own projects. Because there is a financial gain in that can be invested in quality, for example, in housing quality, or in making more sustainable housing with more green and more shared spaces. And also there is you're fostering automatically the creation of a community, people that come together because they want to live together, share spaces. They take care more of the public space and the collective spaces. So always design and plan with the final end user in mind, and leave the freedom for users to plan their own projects with facilitators or project managers. Of course, there is a lot of space and professions that can grow from that. But new cities need space for that allocated. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe back to the general overall theme of the conference. New regenerative cities cannot be built, developed without regenerative citizens. And it has to be done with the citizens. I understand the difficulty to do that in a new city. You know, but usually a new city also has pioneers, startups. So find your future residents, your future users. There are examples of new settlement development where you can already reach out to people who might have an interest to invest here or to live here. And that is really something that you need to look forward, because I would refrain in overshaping a new city, anticipating people that might like it or not like it. You remember maybe from many places we design beautiful parks with beautiful walking paths, but if you look how people use it, it's very differently. So they cut through, and then you say, well, maybe we should have first let the people use it, and then we see how the walking lines can lead to a better design of the park. It's a bit the same for New Clark City, I think, and so that's really a big challenge, and that's also why we worked with this do track, as if I see these people dealing with New Clark City, is this as if they would live here or be here. And that's what you need to do. And that is the power of planning, that you can work with the future, which is uncertain, but also with people that might make their future here. Yeah.
May I quickly add, also as an insight, that in the last 3 days, with the tracks and with the young planners, professionals, I think, and to the first question on the theme, sustainability. I think this was a little bit of my eureka moment here. Sustainability is really about, well, the needs of future generations not being compromised by the needs, as we all know from the Brundtland Report and intergenerational equity. That it's all about first serving the needs of a community, of a country, vis-a-vis the natural environment and all the elements in that. But for regenerative, for even definitionally, regenerative, and it surfaced here and there, and I don't know if there's a way of distilling that further in Siena and for future ISOCARP congresses, and in all of the work like Architect Pineda's, is that there is perhaps even a reverence, but more so now beyond your needs or our needs, it's our responsibilities and our respect for nature, our respect for each other, for communities, for culture, for indigeneity, for a future where, not just because we talk about inclusivity, but there is really an understanding of how shared everything is. And that's more than sustainability. At least that was my insight from a lot of the discussions. Quickly, like I passed through one of from one of our planners, I guess from local governments. This was really very encouraging, and I heard them over dinner saying, the river systems and planning here, and Governor, you'd really like this, because I don't know what municipality or city they were from, but they said something I overheard. It should really be like the ITAS informing the planning for the rivers and that came out of so thank you ISOCARP, and thank you Gov for bringing us all together here. Yeah. And I think it was reflected even in the YPP presentations earlier too. The young are able to see that, the reverence, the respect, the responsibility.
Yeah. Fantastic. Actually, I think those are excellent concluding words. Well, one of the things I'd like to say is that I can't help but think I'm extraordinarily optimistic about the future of the region, of the new city. When I see the kinds of people who are behind it, when I see the kinds of engagement that ISOCARP has had with the community here, I think this is a fantastic place. As an investor, I would think, wow, this is a good time to get in on the action. And I just want to highlight that economic sustainability is a key part of this equation, or we might even say economic regeneration is a key part of this equation. I'm sure that all our speakers would be happy to interact with the audience, but I think pretty much everyone's getting hungry now. And oh, there's still There's still one more presentation. Okay. So with that, I think I'll conclude our collective session here. And a big hand for our panel. Really a fantastic group of people. How can we not be optimistic for the future? Thank you.
A big round of applause for the people on stage. Thank you for the roundtable and for the moderator as well, Sir Guy. And let's take a group picture. And we're going to proceed with the WPC60 NCC Manifesto for New Cities. Of course, this will be headed by Giacomo Gallo, Robert Younger, and Harold De Lima. Thank you once again for the closing roundtable.
Hello?
And let's now proceed with the WPC60 NCC Manifesto for New Cities.
Greg will actually stay on stage because he's also a presenter today. And I would actually like to invite every participant of the Do track that accompanied us over the last 3 days and put all their effort and thoughts into this to join us on stage. Because this is a radically inclusive format, so this should be also represented in the way we present it. So please don't join us. Just come everybody, because this was really a shared effort.
The stage is big enough.
Yes, there's a few shy people, but you just come onto the stage. So, yeah, maybe...
there's more. We can squeeze
super.
On the side.
Yeah, exactly.
The first. The first one. Just... We presented the Do track at the beginning of the conference with the idea that the goal of the Do track would be to build up a manifesto for new regenerative cities that can have an impact and a legacy beyond this Congress. So why to build a manifesto in the first place? So when we look at new city projects or large urban projects, we often see that there is a dichotomy between the ambition that the project sets, the vision, and its realization. There's a gap in years that have to go by and in actually fulfilling the plan. So it's with this prospect that we started to engage in an alternative way with these conference participants. So we try to explore and get a knowledge of the place more direct. And through place-making methodology, we would like to respond to this question and elaborate the first draft of a manifesto principles that then can be completed by everybody and can be benefiting of the input of other parties as well. But before we start, there is a little icebreaker.
So as we do track, so we do something. So we'd like to invite everyone to stand up. So a taste of what we are doing in the do track session. So let's group the hall into 3. So 2 columns here of tables, group 1. This one is group 2, and this side is group 3. So I'd like to request everyone to put the chairs close to the table and then gather on the center. So group 1, group 2, and then the group 3. So just gather at the center. And then somewhere in the middle also. So closer, closer. All right. So this one is group 1, group 2, and then group 3. So what we're going to do is, call it just do it. So you are this participant. And then mentally, on your mind, pick 2 persons in your group. But don't tell them that you've chosen them. So you are this one, and then pick 2 mentally. And then when I say go, the goal is, or the mechanics is, maintain equal distance to those 2 people that you have chosen. And then until we reach equilibrium, we stop. Is that clear? But you're moving. So when I say go, the mechanics is, as much as possible, maintain equal distance to those 2 people that you pick. So the do trackers will also join here. So you can join the middle group. Yeah. Yeah, so it will be 4 groups. So is it clear? The instructions is clear?
Also keep in mind, it starts when the music starts. So, and it stops when the music stops. Yeah? Try, while you're doing it, also do not speak. Just move and concentrate on keeping the distance in your mind. Yeah? All right? Okay. Everybody ready?
Let's go.
Let's go. Let's do it. Please start moving. It's important to move. Don't stop. Always keep it moving.
And try to keep the same distance to the people that you've chosen.
Make sure you keep moving. Keep moving. Life is movement. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Now you got a bit of an idea how that feels like, and perhaps how hard it is to concentrate to keep that kind of movement, and to conceive it as a test ground. Particularly, why we kept you moving is life is never static. It always keeps us moving. Yeah. You have, for example, the tables are there. There are some of these inanimate objects, like the city. All these houses, dwellings, spaces in between which we can't move. But life penetrates through the urban fabric. It moves. That's what it's all about. And also that kind of quality that brings life to the city makes it so unique. So now we're trying, since we have that sense of awareness now, please, we do the same activity once more, and we develop essentially some sense of competency, because you had now the experience first time round. Maybe you're going to even be better at the second time round, because there's a lot of uncertainty when you do move around, because you don't know how the other parts are necessarily behaving around you. So you have to constantly, dynamically, performatively adjust to that. But we can be good and competent in dealing with that sense of uncertainty. And that's what we're facing in our 21st century challenges around us. That sense of complexity, which either numbs us, or we have to adapt and harness that regenerative capacity in us to respond and go with the flow, essentially. Yeah. Shall we do it once more? It's just 1 minute.
Second round, 1 minute.
Get ready when the music starts. Once more, choose 2 new people and keep the distance and keep moving again. Thank you. Can you the music? Maintain equal distance.
So always maintain equal distance to the 2 people that you pick.
Thank you very much. Thank you for indulging us. Please, round of applause. Have a seat. Thanks.
It was almost like a dance.
How was it? No, you can say. You should say. Yeah, please. Thank you for participating with us. Okay. So, the Do Track. Briefly, this is what we did in the past 3 days. We realized that today, while reflecting on the past experience, that actually what we did was can be described in a circular motion by this diagram. So we started with a group lecture in which we looked historically at what is a new city, what is a new regenerative city, and we try to give a first definition. As we moved through the program, we decided that the best way to actually experience that would be to explore places directly. So we organized some site visits, and we didn't have a fixed plan, we didn't have a guide, but we just went out, a group towards Cristo Rey, another group stayed in the area around New Clark City on foot, and engage with the people, with the landscape, and ask questions and start noticing with the framework that we built at the beginning in mind, what were the things that made a city successful, that made spaces places. After that, and in parallel, we used a methodology called placemaking, which basically consists in combining the environment, the person, and the space into something meaningful. That's called place. And through different workshops, we landed on a series of principles that we try to put together in a manifesto. Actually, these principles help us revisit the definition that we had at the beginning and create a new vocabulary for new regenerative cities. Because we believe we don't want to create simply abstract rules or guidelines, but we want to redefine the language that we use. Because we're dealing with something new, something that needs a redefinition exactly.
Yeah, so what we observed during the track and during our workshops is actually that in a lot of cases we speak about emotional value in place of physical value or material value. So most of the parameters that in our point of view made a city successful, livable, inclusive are actually on an emotional base. So what we figured out is that we kind of need to rebalance our vocabulary, which is very much focused on the physical space, and kind of rebalance the emotional value into it and refocus on that, and also develop new planning tools and so to say a new design language to represent these emotional values that we need to implement in regenerative cities.
Just to add to that, and that's what we can learn from, let's say, First Nations perspective, the post-colonial ways of thinking. is that in fact we're not separate from nature, and that sense of stewardship and custodianship comes from being in a place, and that is often in traditional cultures carried through not the written word as we like to tend to construct our world on. It's very much the invisible elements, and having this kind of dualism between the the tangible and the intangible makes things whole. So therefore, as you just so nicely elaborated on, the emotional, the invisible dimension has to become stronger into our consciousness and our narratives as we want to move forward, and the way how we relate to place. And that's so beautifully what I learned at this part of the conference, is that that's so strongly rooted to place. It is something which really is in all of us. We just have to bring it out more often and nurture that, to bring that stronger into our daily, everyday practice, as also in our professional practice.
Yes. And now, we show you a little bit what we went to do with our group, and we will also let them reflect on this experience.
Yeah, we give the word to you. So, well, this photo is for the storytelling that we all assisted to. That's one of our workshops. People in place. Do you have any comments on that? Was it something that you learned in these insights?
I don't work in the Philippines, I work in Singapore, but something that I really appreciated was hearing directly from workers in the Philippines, whether they're engineers, planners, policymakers, and this session allowed us all to interact across levels.
I'm going to scroll through the pictures, so we don't have to speak about every picture. But that's at the beginning, giving a definition.
I think this was a quite a nice workshop, where we kind of tested values and gave them, so to say, a weight, and we did a prioritization. Can we maybe? Does anybody have a good memory of this workshop? And can you maybe elaborate what you appreciated about the whole Do track, maybe?
It makes the idea of planning and of everything that seems to be technical from a non-planner perspective so easy. And we feel heard, we feel seen, and it gave us an impression that we are part of everything. And that while putting on the 5 or 10 activities that we wanted to do in New Clark City, it brings out the feeling that there's no need to rush, and city does not equate to fast. And city may also mean calm, slow, transcendence. So while everyone else is rushing, New Clark City may blossom, may prosper, may transcend at its own pace without keeping score with somebody or other cities.
Thank you.
So who is in these pictures? Who recognizes himself in the pictures in Cristo Rey? That's our site visit. Someone from this picture? What did you learn in Cristo Rey?
Well, as per information from the Sangguniang Barangay members as well as from the barangay captain itself, with the NCC in place, it becomes an opportunity for them as regards their era, because of the internal revenue allotment, that the value of the property rises, and then of course the prices also, like from I think about 15,000 before, now it's about like 2 million and even higher. So it benefited the Barangay Cristo Rey because of the real property taxes. So and of course it caters an employment for them for at least about 500 workers coming from Barangay Cristo Rey. Thank you.
Thanks. Maybe any impressions from the river walk? We have a famous photographer here in our ranks.
Okay, at first on my mind, what was I thinking is, what have I deserved in my previous life that I deserve this, to be involved in these mind-boggling activities? I was actually thinking, what will I be sharing? But during the Do Track program, as our team is divided into two, those who explore the Cristo Rey and the other is in the National River Corridor, we were able to explore the amazing community and the luscious natural resources and also the man-made structures. And by that we were able to give it a chance to analyze how these two different places will be related to make a more inclusive city. So it was actually a very exciting experience, especially we were able to those series of workshop wherein we were able to create a draft manifesto that will be a tool for building, maybe a tool, of course, building for a new regenerative city.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe we promised the manifesto, but maybe it's a bit too early for that in 3 days. But what we did absolutely was that we created a framework that can generate a manifesto that becomes a good, let's say, canvas for ideas, and that kind of structures ideas in a way that can generate points we can derive from, and we can create design principles from. And these manifesto points, or these, they're, for us, we actually want to call them emotional values. And also here we took a methodology from placemaking. This is one of the foundational concepts of placemaking. It's the 4th dimensions of place, which move within a gravity field of yourself, nature, public and private space, and communities. And within these gravity fields, between two, let's say, polar attractors, we see the emotional values that will become part of our manifesto and that we will then elaborate on in a further kind of design process. We already did, as an example, we elaborated on one point. And what we saw, for example, as the connection or the relation between public and private space and nature is for us the alignment with territory. And how do we achieve an alignment with territory, with the place that we are in, with the place where our stories are written? We think that we need to think in new boundaries. What we came across in a lot of cases was that natural boundaries are very much not intersecting or congruent with administrative boundaries or political boundaries, which often leads to clashes between a natural ecosystem and a so-called planned ecosystem or a planned system. What we also think in terms of pacing development, what we already heard, that we need to be slow and organic. We also think that natural rhythms should dictate the pace of a city development. And hereby we mean seasons, but we mean also life cycles, we mean vegetation cycles of plants and, for example, forests. And what we also think is that we need, nature needs agency within regenerative cities. And therefore we believe strongly in giving natural entities actually a voice, but also even a legal persona in order for it to be able to defend itself in front or against decision makers. But actually, and what we are, I think, most proud of is that we tested this framework in a workshop right away to figure out if it makes sense. And we asked our team members to adapt this framework and come up with their own solutions. So we want to invite a representative to present.
Okay, so we viewed placemaking as a philosophy and a process. So it recognizes the connections between people and place, both the built and natural environment. So we've had a very detailed discussion, as you can see in this framework that we have created. But let me just highlight the emotional values that links these different dimensions of place, which can serve as an inspiration for design principles to make these values tangible. So first, we were able to highlight the importance of having a sense of belongingness among people within the community, as well as fostering care and connection from the self to the natural environment, and as well as a sense of stewardship with the environment between the built and the natural environment, and most importantly, diverting beyond just livability, but to lovability as well, where people can not just live, but also thrive in these new cities or places, which is something that they will love and value.
These emotional values became the basis of our principles. They are interconnected, so I'll briefly follow them through the motion of a clock. We enable belongingness through an assurance of dignity. Planners should see all residents, especially indigenous people, existing communities, and the poor, not just as beneficiaries, but as equal partners who have knowledge, heritage, needs, and aspirations that should inform the creation of unique and rooted places. We cultivate care, connection, and sense of stewardship through emphasizing the unique selling point of Clark compared to other centers. A slower pace of life that respects Filipino culture. A focus not on competing with global cities, but on creating an environment that regenerates a modern Filipino society for centuries to come. One where spaces are built not just to look green, but to facilitate personal connections with nature, to express our values of community, food security, and sharing. And these principles physically manifest in our design principles for public and public space. We want residents to be able to look at a place and see a reflection of themselves, that this is my home, I helped build this place. This cannot be done when the everyday experience is shaped by the same vision, with the same kinds of shopping malls, luxury buildings, and uncrossable roads that dot most other integrated projects in this country. To that end, the core design principle is public engagement at the starting point. This includes participatory design to update the master plan. This also includes empowering people to directly participate in creating places and to gain ownership of them, through opportunities for small businesses and community centers to be present in the urban fabric, perhaps through people-friendly mixed-use zoning or rent stabilization. And you will connect these places with a shared public realm, walkable streets and street economies that encourage people to live in the city, safety that is guaranteed through the eyes on the street, where you know the faces of your neighbors and act with care and respect. A form of disciplina achieved not through fear, but through malasakit, common care. That way, residents can collectively create a city that not just looks, but also feels authentically Filipino. As one of our team members put it, dapat maging isang tahanan, a city that is home for the people of the Philippines. Thank you.
There is two main concept principle. One is accessibility. New Clark City is a smart city. Someone asked from Carlos, who is the author of 50 Minutes City book. He said, smart city is not based on technology. A smart city have to accessibility. That's our main concept. Another one is livability and livability. That's the main concept of the placemaking.
So that was one group, and then we actually, another group actually went into depth, and they kind of elaborated on how we can come from an emotional value into principles to actual design implementations. Please?
Our group took a more straightforward, simplified way of looking at the whole thing. And we made reference of the previous output from previous workshops. And for this one slide, we had actually a number of different post-its, sheets of papers, and all the markings all over the place. But we picked one value that we wanted to focus on this one, which is how to bring the self closer to nature, because what we wanted here is how the self and nature can be integrated. So given that it's like the value of bringing self closer to nature, we took a look at some of the things that we shared as a group. And then one of the items that came up is that how to create a safe place to escape if self and nature. So it's like nature as a place to escape and recharge, practically find a place of refuge and solace, which is possible here in NCC. And with that, we also identified the need to be stewards and custodians of nature. As much as there's an interaction between nature and the self, there's also a need to take care of that very nature that could give that sense of safe place. And of course, just to lighten everything, it should also be creative and fun. So it need not be so serious, but it can also be a place of just a certain lightness to it. And from this exercise, we were able to identify specific tangible things or items or actions that can be done. Like in creating the safe place to escape, we were thinking of coming up with pathways, with signages that would tell people how how this place can really recharge them. Put in benches wherein there would be stops for rests. Come up with a meditation garden, as well as maybe also a botanical or a forest concept, just to put the therapy side to the whole thing. As stewards, come up with activities like do some cleanup sessions or signages on how the whole place can be protected and what regulations are in place, as well as the very basic provision of waste bins and even the awareness, because it will not be a smooth trek. And for the creative and fun, we were thinking of doing an educational trail, like some inputs on what the tree is all about, what the mix of the flora and fauna is all about, and how people can take care of it and what value people can get of it, both the young and the old. So technically, this is our take of the whole exercise. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you so much.
Here we are. That's not all of us, but some people joined later, but that's the picture of the Do Track the first day. And I mean, congratulations, really thanks to all the participants that gave all their energy and time in these 3 days, because I think you did a great job, and we came up with a very interesting framework that is the base for a manifesto.
Obviously, if I may add, what was really beautiful is that we learned a lot from you as well, like which for us is maybe most important, because there was a lot of information from you and a lot of interaction with you guys, and I think that was the most valuable thing that we created here, that there was really a true conversation here about intercultural conversation. That was really beautiful. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Well, last but not least, this is not over yet. So we tested this methodology. We think that has a lot of potential. It was a first test. We would like to invite you to sign up for our mailing list. We already have all you signed in. But we want to create a bit of a movement and, let's say, attract the opinions and test these principles with you and with all the professionals linked to the network of ISOCARP, of UN. So this could be the beginning of something that we do together, of a shared manifesto for new regenerative cities. So please contact us and let's continue this.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thanks. Oh, well, it's gone.
Can we have the last slides maybe again? Just
so you can write to info@newenvironments.eu.
And also placemaking.dvo@gmail.com. Thank you very much.
And Harold and I will be here, so we have business cards. If you, so we can get you the contact. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah, also from my side, from Isocarp, on behalf of Isocarp, Giacomo, Robert, Harold, thank you so much for taking this up. I think we are actually here in multiple ways discovering, exploring new frontiers and going beyond them. Yes, in terms of the place, it's the first time that Isocarp goes to a city that doesn't really yet exist, but we are very confident that it will become a reality with real people. You know, and it's the first time that we do something like the Do Track, and we think it sets really a kind of new standard that might become a standard for the future conferences as well. So thank you very much for being the pioneers together with your team.
Thank you, Giacomo, Robert, and Harold, our three handsome gentlemen here in front a while ago. We're now going to proceed with our next segment. We have the honor to share with you the closing address, of course, of Ms. Maimuna Mod Sharif, the mayor of Kuala Lumpur and the former executive director of UN Habitat. Let's all watch this.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. It is a great honor and privilege to be able to record this message and to convey my esteemed regards to all of you attending ISOCAP's first international conference on new cities hosted in inspiring New Clark City NCC within the Philippine Tarlac region. I extend my sincere gratitude to both ISOCAP and the local government in the Philippine Tarlac region for inviting me to address this vital gathering. As we stand on the cusp of shaping the future of our cities, a topic deeply close to my heart, I am filled with both excitement and a profound sense of responsibility. As the former executive director of UN Habitat, I have witnessed firsthand the complex combination of challenges and opportunities that cities present. Cities are the beating heart of our world, home to over half of the global population and growing at an unprecedented pace. This rapid urbanization brings forth the multitude of challenges, including poverty, inequality, and the urgent threat of climate change. Yet, cities also hold the keys to a brighter future. They are vibrant hubs of innovation, creativity, and economic dynamism. Cities serve as melting pots where people from all corners of the globe converge to live, work, and learn, fostering cooperation that fuels progress. Indeed, we are stronger together. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this conference, Planning New Regenerative Cities, resonates deeply with the urgency of our time. As you know, 70% of all the buildings in our cities in 2050 have already been built. It is important that we proactively plan to regenerate existing cities, just as we find innovative ways to design and building future cities. We need urban landscapes that are not only sustainable and resilient, but also inclusive, so that no one is left behind in our urbanizing world. Throughout this conference, we have explored crucial topics such as the circular economy, carbon-neutral energy solutions, and nature-based approaches to building resilience and inclusive cities. These are the building blocks upon which we can construct cities that thrive in harmony with our people and planet. Furthermore, the focus on climate adaptive resilient planning for new cities is the critical challenge of our generations. Climate change is here and is happening now with heat waves, floods, and fires in all continents and in all countries. As the impacts of climate change become increasingly evident, it is crucial that our cities are equipped to withstand and adapt to the challenges that lie ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, poverty and inequality cast a long shadow over our world. We must strive to create cities that are inclusive and equitable, where every individual has the opportunity to flourish and reach their full potentials. Just as we adapt to climate change, we must make sure that the transition to carbon neutral future is just and does not instead widen the gap between the rich and the poor, whether that is between north and south or even within cities. The challenges inherent to urbanization, such as congestions, pollutions, and crime, require unwavering attention and commitment to sustainable solutions. As you know, I am an eternal optimist, having left the United Nations Human Settlement Program with a footprint in over 1,600 cities, and now as a mayor of Kuala Lumpur, I am more determined than ever to aspire to and inspire before I expire. The future of our cities rests in our hands. We have the power to shape cities that are not only sustainable and resilient, but also beacons of inclusivity and opportunity. I urge you all to embrace this responsibility, to take actions, and to contribute to the creation of a brighter future for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our Kuala Lumpur Mayor Maimuna Mod Sharif. Okay, let's hasten the program. Let's proceed with the reflections this time. I'd like to call in from the LOC, we have Doc Heidi, and of course, Ma'am Elizabeth from the side of ISOCARP, the President-elect of ISOCARP, for the reflections.
Thank you. Thank you, Lynn. I'll be very brief. I know we all have information overload. From all the mini programs we all took part in that are templates of 60 years of ISOCARP World Congresses, of which New Clark City, Tarlac, is now historically a part of. Like the closing roundtable that we had, the YPP program, the technical tours, tomorrow, and many more. So I only have 3 points to state. Number one, we thank our visionary governor, Susan A. Yap, where is she? Who really readily acceded to our proposal and went all out as our host and champion, together with her whole team of PGT, Provincial Government of Tarlac. May we give them our warm round of applause. Number two, we promised ISOCARP a remarkable, substantive, memorable, and unforgettable Congress. We hope we have done that from the participants and even ISOCARP's feedback from us. Yeah. Number three, but most importantly, beyond all the concerted efforts in the partnership we fostered here with ISOCARP, the host organization, endorsing partners, all the delegates and participants, volunteers have found value from the short and long-term benefits we have all gained. It is not an accident that we all meet here today. And for all that, maraming salamat po. Team Philippines, mabuhay!
Yes, on behalf of ISOCARP, I would also like to extend once again our heartfelt gratitude to the provincial government of Tarlac, with indeed visionary Susan Yap. Very warm hospitality, the everlasting smiles of everyone here, and super hosting. So we have been spoiled. Special thanks to the local team, led by the wonderful Heidi. Our ISOCARP conference director and coordinator, Rine and Marite. General Rapporteur, Andy, and supported by Juani in Australia, who couldn't come, but also the whole Congress team, the doers that led the Do Track, a new initiative, so thank you. And of course, the participants of the Do Track, YPP director, Rolf, and all the coordinators, the coordinators for YPP. Also Millie, our communication person that is back in Den Haag, in the Netherlands. Everyone behind the scene, and also those who could not make it, because that's many. So 3 days ago, we embarked on this explorative journey into the realm of planning new regenerative cities. For some, the notion gained significance or gained renewed significance. For others, it was confusing, and it still is, or it became maybe even more confusing. And I will be practical. I will still add a few points that I learned on my journey here during the past 3 days. And they come from keynotes, colleagues, parallel tracks, and so on. Planning is a bold lever, so let's use the power. Nature is big, and it owes our respect. And with that, we need to widen our focus from people to all life. Collaboration between planning and landscape architecture is much needed if we want big nature to play an important part of our regenerative cities. And nature is a key infrastructure for a city. Equally, in the field of nature-based solutions, we need to start conversations with developers, and in the second line with banks and insurance companies. We didn't talk about it, but how can we leverage them to create conditions to have developers to or to accelerate getting nature in our cities? We have to think along that line as well. Let's also shift our thinking and actions and have a renewed look and maybe different language. If we look at the current situation and take a positive lens, I think we heard it today. Instead of waste management, it can become resource management. So have a different look at what we have around us. And as Frank, the Secretary General, said, we cannot regenerate cities without regenerating citizens. We need to leverage the power of the community for a regenerative transformation. Thereby, we have to question our supposedly neutral concepts of citizen, home, family, people, or population, even if we treat it with the best intention, because people, for instance, is not one group. And let's not make assumptions, but let's go where the diversity of people are. Let's go to the indigenous people. Let's go where women live and work. Let's go to our young people, to elderly, and let's engage them. It's key for resilience, building communities. We need to put more effort in creating tools so we can actually participate and collaborate with the different and engage with the different diversity of groups. Visual tools tend to be very beneficial, different types of visual tools, to work together with the diversity of communities, but also to inspire and build awareness with our politicians. If not, there will not be a shift in understanding what we need. And keep on questioning and unpacking what is a city, what is a new city, what are regenerative cities versus sustainable cities. So let's not just plan cities, as I said in the opening too, but let's plan legacies. I think with what we've seen, the memorandum that's coming up as a result of the Do Track with the participation is a legacy. It's also a first. This conference was a first, which is great. And another legacy is the special issue of a journal, Citizen Health, with whom we collaborate. I like to launch our first special issue now, and there is a QR code that is coming up. You can scan it. And you have for 1 month access to, open access to all the articles that are in the journal, which we have negotiated with Routledge and the publisher Tandofline. But also, there was a workshop here, and that will lead to our second special issue, and that's legacy of this conference. And the name is One Health for All, Exploring Regenerative Practices for Coexistence and Well-Being. And after our Congress in Siena, an open call will be launched, and everybody is welcome to participate. So that's another legacy of this conference. And with this, I would like to close and thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Doc Heidi and Ma'am Elizabeth. Of course, that's a reflection. So before we proceed with dinner, I'd like to call in my boss, our hardworking governor, for her call to carbon neutrality. Please give it up for Governor Susan Yap. Of course, proudly from the province of Tarlac.
In our last few minutes. It's 8 o'clock. Yeah? In behalf of the provincial government of Tarlac, I thank each of you for the honor of hosting this historic Congress, the Diamond Edition of ISOCARP and the first Congress on Regenerative Cities. And with our co-host, San Miguel Corporation, seeing you all here, especially on the first day when everyone was dancing and singing, made it really worthwhile. New Clark City was your home this past 3 days. Is considered one of Southeast Asia's largest greenfield. With 60% of the area reserved for green spaces and water carbon reduction, it is almost already guaranteed. This city is just one of the latest ecological efforts for Tarlac, an agricultural province deeply connected with nature. As we are home to several renewables energy projects, we continue to explore the use of agri-solar farms to harness the Philippines' best sun radiance while ensuring food security. The first ever international conference of new cities, which we jointly hosted with ISOCARP, is thus the perfect time for another first in Tarlac. The launch of Tarlac's carbon neutrality, where's Royal right there, carbon neutrality initiative, more than 5,000 hectares of our carbon forest in the highlands of San Jose will be the location. The initiative was also the subject of this year's Young Planning Professionals Challenge last week. More than 20 young planning professionals went to San Jose for immersion, and they spent several hours studying and brainstorming, and the proposals that they came up with are supportive of this commitment. But before anything else, I would like to acknowledge my brother who had the vision for New Clark City and for the Highlands, none other than Vic Yap, the former governor, who really brought into me the importance of planning. No? That's why when Heidi and Sinanaxi approached me with Krishna to bid for hosting the ISOCARP, I didn't think twice. I stepped in, not knowing how difficult it will be, but we made it. So thank you to the local organizing committee. To all the participants of this World Planning Congress, I thank you for joining us. I am honored to lead the call for launching of our carbon neutrality initiative. Through our advocacy of establishing native tree parks and propagating the miracle timber or rhizome bamboo, in fact, 8 seedlings, we have them right here. We couldn't go out kasi gabi na, but we'll be launching that. We would like to thank Mr. David Sands and Russell Smith for this. This rhizome bamboo is a special species to be propagated by the communities with potential to substitute for imported building materials from Tarlac to the Philippines and then to the world. Again, maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat, and thank you for making this World Planning Congress the first in Tarlac, the first in the Philippines. Mabuhay po tayong lahat.
I'd like to call in, of course, nandito na po ang aking boss, Tarlac Governor Susan Yap, ISOCAR President-elect Ma'am Elizabeth Belpaire, LOC Chair Doc Heidi Malubay, Architect Royal Pineda, President Aray Perez, Tarlac Planning President ENP Vlad Santillan, David Sands of Rhizome, YPP Director Rolf Chouet, and of course, if President Noel Manangkil of Lipad is with us, please join us here on stage for a ceremonial picture taking with our bamboo seedlings. Everybody look at the camera. So they all have one each to take home. Yes, you can take them with you. Big round of applause for Governor Susan's advocacy and call for carbon neutrality. May I request our team to turn on the lights at this point. We're going to proceed with dinner. Just an announcement, please hold on to your badges. You know, the delegates, please hold on to your badges because we have to present them at the dinner buffet station. And yes, dinner will now be served. Part 2 will proceed right after dinner. So please do enjoy your dinner. Thank you, everybody.
touch of your hand says you'll catch me if ever I fall. Oh, you say it best when Let me know that you need me, girl. Let me know that you need me, girl. Please don't take my sunshine away. Oh, my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Please don't take my sunshine away. No, please don't take my sunshine away. Staring at the bottom of your glass, hoping one day you'll make a dream last. But dreams come slow and they go so fast. You see when you close your eyes, maybe one day you'll understand why everything you touch surely dies. But you only need the light when it's burning low. Only miss the sun when it starts to snow. Only know you love her when you let her go. Yeah, yeah. Only know you've been high when you're feeling low. Only hate the road when you're missing home. Only know you love her when you let her go. Staring at the ceiling in the dark, the same old empty feeling in your heart. Just love comes slow and it goes so fast. You see when you fall asleep, but never to touch and never to keep. 'Cause you loved it too much and you dive too deep. Oh, where you only need the light when it's burning low. Only miss the sun when it starts to snow. Only know you love her when you let her go. Yeah, yeah. Only know you've been high when you're feeling low. Only hate the road when you're missing home. Only know you love her when you let her go. Oh, when you let her go. Oh, you let her go. Yeah, yeah. But you only need the light when it's burning low. Only miss the sun when it starts to snow. Only know you love her when you let her go. Only know you've been high when you're feeling low. Only hate the road when you're missing home. Only know you love her when you let her go. And you let her go. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And you let her go. Oceans apart, day after day, and I slowly go insane. I hear your voice on the line, but it doesn't stop the pain. If I see you next to never, how can we say forever? Wherever you go, whatever you do, for granted all the time that I thought would last. I hear the laughter, I taste the tears, but I can't get near you now. Oh, can't you see, baby? You got me going crazy. Wherever you go, whatever you do, I will be right here waiting for you. Whatever it takes, or how my heart breaks, I will be right here waiting for you. I wonder how we can survive this romance, but in the end, if I'm with you, I'll take the chance. No, can't you see, baby? You got me going crazy. Wherever you go, whatever you do, I will be right here waiting for you. Whatever it takes, how my heart breaks, I will be right here waiting for you. I will be right here waiting for you. I will be right here waiting for you. You with the sad eyes, don't be discouraged, so I realize it's hard to take courage in a world full of people. You can lose sight of it all, and the darkness inside of you can make you feel so small. And I see your true colors shining through, and I see your true colors. That's why I love you, so don't be afraid to let them show. Your true colors are beautiful, oh, like a rainbow. Show me a smile, don't be unhappy. Can't remember when I last saw you laughing. This world makes you crazy, taking all that you can bear. Just call me up, 'cause I'll always be there. And I see your true colors shining through, and I see your true colors. That's why I love you, so don't be afraid to let them show. Your true colors are beautiful, oh, like a rainbow. Yeah, I see your true colors shining through. I see your true colors shining through. I see your true colors shining through. Yeah, I see your true colors. That's why I love you, so don't be afraid, oh, don't let them show. Your true colors are beautiful, oh, like a rainbow. Oh, like a rainbow. Oh, like a rainbow. Keep me breathing. Why'd you smile while you were Only fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with you. Shall I stay? Would it be a sin? Oh, if I can't help falling in love with you. Like a river flows surely to the sea, darling, so it goes. Some things are meant to be. Oh, and take my hand, oh, take my whole life too. Oh, for I can't help falling in love with you. Like a river flows surely to the sea, darling, so it goes. Some things are meant to be. Oh, and take my hand, oh, take my whole life too. Oh, for I can't help falling in love with you. Oh, for I can't help falling in love with you. could stay awake just to hear you breathing. Watch you smile while you are sleeping, while you're far away and dreaming. And I could spend my life in this sweet surrender. I could stay lost in this moment forever. Every moment spent with you is a moment I treasure. Oh yeah, I don't wanna close my eyes, I don't wanna fall asleep 'cause I miss you, babe, and I don't wanna miss a thing. 'Cause even when I dream of you, the sweetest dream will never do, I still miss you, babe, and I don't wanna miss a thing. Lying close to you, feeling your heart beating, and I'm wondering what you're dreaming, wondering if it's me you're seeing. And then I kiss your eyes, and thank God we're together. I just wanna stay with you in this moment forever, forever and ever. I don't wanna close my eyes, I don't wanna fall asleep 'cause I miss you, babe, and I don't wanna miss a thing. 'Cause even when I dream of you, the sweetest dream will never do, I still miss you, babe, and I don't wanna miss a thing. I don't wanna miss one smile, I don't wanna miss one kiss. Oh, I just wanna be with you, right here with you, just like this. And I just wanna hold you close, feel your heart so close to mine, and just stay here in this moment for all the rest of time. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't wanna close my eyes, I don't wanna fall asleep 'cause I miss you, babe, and I don't wanna miss a thing. 'Cause even when I dream of you, the sweetest dream will never do, I still miss you, babe, and I don't wanna miss a thing. Oh, the sweetest dream will never do, I still miss you, babe, and I don't wanna miss a thing.
The club isn't the best place to find the lovers, so the bar is where I go. Me and my friends at the table doing shots, drinking fast, and then we talk slow. You come over and start up a conversation with just me, and trust me, I'll give it a chance. Now take my hand, stop, and the man on the jukebox, and then we start to dance.
I'm singing like, girl, you know I want your love. Your love was handmade for somebody like me. Come on now, follow my lead. I may be crazy, don't mind me.
Say, boy, let's not talk too much. Grab on my waist and put that body on me.
Come on now, follow my lead.
Come on now, follow my lead.
I'm in love with the shape of you. shape of you. Touch me in the pouring rain, and the moment that you wander far from me, I wanna feel you in my arms again. And you come to me on a summer breeze, keep me warm in your love, and you softly breathe. And it's me you need to show how deep is your love, how deep is your love. I really need your love, 'cause we're living in a world of fools, breaking us down when they all should let us be. We belong to you and me. I believe in you. You know the door to my very soul. You're the light in my deepest, darkest heart. You're my savior when I fall. And there ain't nothing that I care for you. You know down inside that I really do. And it's me you need to show how deep is your love, how deep is your love. I really need your love, 'cause we're living in a world of fools, breaking us down when they all should let us be. We belong to you and me. Come to me on a summer breeze, keep me warm in your love, and you softly leave. And it's me you need to show how deep is your love, how deep is your love. I really need to love, 'cause we're living in a world of fools, breaking us down when they all should let us be. We belong to you and me. How deep is your love? How deep is your love? Oh, how deep is your love? How deep how deep is your love? How deep is your love? Would you know my name?
General announcement to everybody who's looking for a certificate of appearance and participation. It will be ready at the lobby. There's a printing station down there. So for those who'd like to have those certificates in hand before you exit the building, it will be there at the first floor at the registration area. And of course, for those who'd still like to join the Manila Tech Tour, it's still open. Unfortunately, the Las Casas Acusar de Bataan tour is already fully booked. So thank you, everybody. I'd like to announce again one last call for the Manila Technical Tour. If you're interested in visiting Manila, of course, please do drop by the registration area to get signed up. Thank you.
Would you hold my hand if I saw you in heaven? Would you help me stand? Oh, yeah. If I saw you.
All right. Once again, the certificate of appearance will be available downstairs at the ground floor. Thank you. So we started off last September 10 together with hopes and aspirations and ideas and conceptualizations of, very brilliant minds, coming from very brilliant minds. So tonight, we're gonna close it with the same song, because when we introduced the song at the opening ceremonies, it was We Win as One, because we're definitely gonna win as one if we're all in this together, right? So please join me once again in singing this song. Of course, this time it will be interpreted by the beautiful Miss Lay Hoxon. A big round of applause, everybody.
Good evening once again, and congratulations to the organizers for this event. This is We Win as One.
We stand today, opponents. We strive to bring home pride, and yet when our power are combined, is a force to change the world. Our nations share a common dream. Our roots are old and new. Our stories joyful echo in the past, forged too strong and true. Together we're a universe. We are the future brings. Yes, we compete, but the greatest feat is when we win as one. We win as one, unconquered. We win as
Thank you so much to the beautiful and very talented and passionate Miss Lay Hoxon for interpreting that song. The world is hurting because of wars and conflicts, disasters and disruptions. As planners in our different fields who all work for a better world, join us in singing this song. Good evening, everybody. We're going to do it the Filipino karaoke way. There's a place in your heart, and I know that it is love. The place can be much brighter than tomorrow. And if you really try, you'll find there's no need to cry. The place you'll feel there's no hurt or sorrow. We're gonna do this video. Please sing with me. There are ways to get there. If you care enough for the living, make a little space to make a better place. Everybody now, please join me. Heal the world.
Make it a better place
For you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for living, make a better place for you and for me. Yay! You want to try this next stanza, sir?
of the cannot find. I'll be strong, joyful giving. If we try, we shall see. If it's bliss we cannot feel, fear of bread, that's our living.
Then it feels that always love's enough for us growing. So make a better world. Make a better world. Come on, style. Karaoke, videoke, that's our trademark. And of course, I know everybody's enjoying. And we'd like to present at this point the same day edit video. These are the video highlights of what unfolded during the 3-day World Planning Congress. So let's all watch this. Here we go.
We are glad to host this unique platform to harness the power of knowledge exchange, networking, and partnership building as ISOCARP convenes this region, this open, frank, and constructive global conversation on themes confronting our region, both the pressing and the strategic.
We look forward to the insightful exchanges between SPA that will transpire in the coming days. We hope that you enjoy your stay in New York City. Again, congratulations and mabuhay ISOCARP.
Let us lead the way in creating people-centered urban environments where both social equity and ecological health are at the forefront.
I hope that this presentation on the Philippines' growth story resonates with your experiences in your respective jurisdictions and geographies and offer you some useful insights for the many discussions in this Congress.
The crux of our expression of interest is really for our Eastern perspective and our voices of the Global South to be heard.
Together, let's lay the groundwork for cities that will last and thrive for both people and the planet.
Let us leave this conference not just with new ideas, but with a renewed commitment to action that regenerates and transforms our cities into beacons of sustainability, resilience, inclusivity, but also kindness and hope.
I'd like to express my gratitude to the board of ISOCAP and the LLC and partners for giving us this great opportunity to be your general rapporteur for the next 3 days.
We see here a unique opportunity to make positive impact by focusing on new places from the start, the cities under development or yet to be planned.
A master plan is ever evolving, so its success is going to lie in the ability for everyone to take and be invested.
We need to strengthen the conviction that we are one single human family. We're all interconnected. We're all neighbors. We are all kapwa.
There you have it, the video highlights. I hope you all enjoyed that. And maybe we can post that on the social media page of ISOCARP, if allowed, right? So thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure hosting, co-hosting with ISOCARP in behalf of the provincial government of Tarlac. We hope you've had a very memorable and, should I say, mind-blowing experience here at the Congress, because you're definitely on information overload. So once again, my name is Lynn Macalino in behalf of Governor Susan Yap and the whole provincial government of Tarlac. God bless, good night, and so ends my program. It's time to party. For those who'd like to open the video, okay, let's do it now, because we're ready for that. If anybody wants to sing along, the lead wall is at your disposal, and so is this microphone. God bless. Good evening, everybody. Enjoy each other's company. Thank you.